There comes a time in every rope's life that you need to cut it, whether you like it or not. Whether it comes from a new roll and you need a short piece of the rope for your purposes, or maybe because you used it for a knot and it jammed and you can no longer undo the knot, thus you need to cut off the jammed knot. Whatever the reason that you need to cut the rope, one thing is certain. Whenever you cut a rope, the ends are going to unwind. They will come loose and they will fall apart. If left unattended, it comes to a point that the rope is no longer usable or no longer salvageable. Initially, right after cutting, you will see a brush-like mixture of the rope particles. This is actually the best time that you are going to fuse the rope or burn the end of the rope so it no longer falls apart. Once you burn it, this is how it's going to look. It's going to be fixed, it's going to be neat and clean, and it's not going to fall apart again. The procedure of burning the rope is quite easy. So this is how it's going to look like once it starts falling apart. So the semi-major strands will start falling off one by one. It's going to get longer and longer. Eventually, the tinier strands are also going to unfold. And this is how it's going to look like after a short period of time. The tinier strands are all over. They're like fur scattered all about. This is what happened to my rope attaching my tarpaulin to the tree branch. I left it unattended for far too long. It started to unwind. And as the weather took its toll on the rope, it unwinded even more. This is how clean and neat it will look like if you immediately fuse the rope or burn the ends of the rope once you cut it. It's going to be clean, neat, tidy, and you are able to execute your knot properly. See how nice and round the top of the rope is. If you do not fuse the rope immediately, this is what is going to happen. This is what happens when you try to save the rope once it has started falling apart. Look how ugly it is. I thought I would be able to salvage it, but apparently it has unwinded too much. And no matter how I try to rewind it, it just simply unwinds itself back. So if you wait until it's too late before you decide to save your rope, well, you can be able to save it from further damage, but the end tip will be ugly. It will be unsightly and the burn will not be as good or as clean. You can use a plain lighter if you're just going to fuse one rope. Or you can use a candle if you're going to fuse about 2, 3, or 4 pieces of rope. I personally find the flames too low and too weak, but it's going to work. You can use a torch for a stronger flame, but we don't really need a flame to be that strong. My personal preference is using the cooking stove. So I just flick it on and burn the rope for a few seconds and switch it off again. You will also need something to curb or wipe the end of the burned rope with. I personally just use a used leaf. So after you heat the end of the rope, it's going to melt slowly. Some will let it go to a burn, to a small fire. But I no longer let it reach that point. See, that is enough to melt the rope. And then I am going to use the used leaf to turn it around on the top. And I will get that curved cone shape. If you don't get it on the first attempt, you can heat it again And then you can once again wipe it with the leaf or your rag or your carton. That is a beautiful burn and fuse. It is smooth, it is rounded. Be careful when you are using a thin material to curb off the burned tip. It's going to be hot and you may burn yourself. I am now going to work on this second rope. Again, flick on the fire and just rotate the rope, roast it around. No need to put it for a long period of time. Just keep turning it so it evenly melts on all points. And once you see it start melting, you immediately curb off the tip. I use my leaf. You can use a carton, a cardboard, a paper, or a rag. There, we have a clean and smooth fuse of the rope. If you have a clean and smooth end of your rope, you will be able to tie and execute your knots properly. If the end of the rope is not smooth and round, if the end of the rope is kind of bulky, you may not be able to execute some of the knots properly. Tying knots will require you to thread the end of the rope through the ropes. And a bulky or improperly fused end will prevent you from executing the knots smoothly. Further, if you need to use pulleys, you might not be able to insert the improperly fused rope inside the pulley. And this is why it is important to properly burn or fuse the end of a cut rope. And also, the best time to do this is when the rope is freshly cut and not yet utilized. Because once the rope has started falling apart and then you try to salvage the situation, the end result will not be as smooth or as clean as you want it to be. You will have bumpy ends and recurringly unwinding twines of rope. It takes just a short amount of time to properly fuse a rope, around 30 seconds or 40 seconds at the most, and it will serve you for the rest of the life of the rope. The rope will no longer fall apart, it will be smooth, it will be clean, and it will be easy to do your knots. It will easily be used in pulleys. And that is how easy it is to fuse or burn the ends of the rope. Do hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget the notification bell so you will be updated of my future uploads. Please comment down below so I can get back to you as soon as I can. Until our next upload, this is your host saying thank you for tuning in and thank you for watching.